And it's 2023. Welcome to a new year and a new episode of Unpacking Endpoint Management with myself and my co-host Danny Guillory and our adult supervision, Rochelle Blanchard. The 49ers lost. The big game is set, Danny. Sorry about it. I have to say the big game because we don't want to get sued. For those outside the U.S., we're discussing that bizarre rugby-like thing we call American football. Danny, it's cold here in Texas. It's actually snowing and sleeting here in Texas. So cold, I got my old man sweater on. So how are you doing, Danny?
It's cold as heck here in St. Louis too. Look, I'm cold. See, I got sweaters on too. I would have a hat, but it's a team hat. That it is what it is. We lost. No, well, thanks everybody. Welcome to the show. Today we are going to talk about apps. Yes, we have our adult supervision, and we brought two great PMs, Mandar and Roy, to help us talk about apps. Mandar is on my team. Roy is a PM from the Winget side. So, Mandar, Roy, y'all want to do intros? Everybody knows us, so we're not the exciting people that came.
Hey guys, my name is Mandar. I work on Danny's team, and I'm the PM that worked on the Winget Windows Package Manager integration within Intune, and kind of bring the new store experience inside Intune. And I'll let Roy introduce himself.
Hey, I'm Roy, program manager working on the Windows Package Manager team, and we've been definitely working directly together with Mandar and the Intune team to try and make things as best we can for the IT experience with the new store experience.
Now, I know that everyone is a bit excited, and of course, there are a lot that are a bit apprehensive as well. We're talking major change coming, and we have a deadline coming up, March 31st, 2023. So from the 50,000 foot view, I'm going to throw this out there. What is happening? What is happening to the store for business? For those who may have been under a rock and not realize what we're actually talking about today.
So I could probably start, and Roy could jump in and correct me if I say anything wrong. But basically, the store for business is going away. It's getting deprecated, and by March 31st, that is when the UX, the plural experience, gets deprecated. So what that really means is that you will no longer basically be able to go and interact with the UX itself and create new app objects inside Intune or from the store for business. But what that means is that if you have an application that's already created from Microsoft Store for Business, they will technically continue to work, but they will no longer be updated and things like that. So that's kind of from a high level perspective what's going to happen. I'll let Roy. Roy, do you have anything to add, or did I miss anything?
I mean, you pretty much covered everything with the whole store for business being retired down there. I think the only thing to add into this is, hopefully we can make the experience better in the future.
Yeah, and I think we are on track to doing that.
So question, Roy, tell us a little bit about Winget, and then we can dovetail into the things that you and Mandar worked on, bringing some of the integration into Intune.
For sure. So the Windows Package Manager is essentially just a package manager that's being provided by Microsoft. We have two sources, as we refer to them as, which is basically just a content repository of applications. One is the Microsoft Store, so everything that you have access to today from the Microsoft Store is available for install through the Windows Package Manager. And then second to that is we've opened it up broadly to our community to offer their own apps in their own way so that they can get their content into place for clients to access for install on their devices. And we call this the community repository. And if you go and you want to publish content to it, it's easy enough. It's the Winget Winget packages. And that will provide aka.ms, Winget packages. And that'll provide you with a location in which you can publish your own package manifest, which represents the application file, its location on the internet, as well as the installation strings for each different architecture. And then it can be deployed out easily enough for any customer computer. And then the whole program as itself is built open source. So if you want to see the code, you want to contribute to making it better, we do have the aka.ms winget-cli, which customers or developers can connect into and offer to help out. We list all of our issues online. We put all of our releases on there. If you're wondering what we're working towards, it's listed inside of each future release. And my partner, Demetrius, in this effort, he makes sure that all of that gets documented online. So check it out.
Thanks, Roy. I'm going to go to our audience. We have a question from Daniel. Will the store integration be able to use other repositories for Winget than MS Store? Who wants
I think
to
that's a
take
Mandar question.
So that's a great question. So currently, I think in terms of Intune, MS Store is kind of like the only repository that could be accessed. I think our recommendation is that if there is a desire for other repositories, to just use the Windows Package Manager, because the technology is there, and I think we have a lot of blogs on it, and Roy did a fantastic job. There's demos and documentations of how that would work. So that's our recommendation.
Also, I mean, you can always throw your comments and questions and issues like this, or feature requests like this, if you want to see something into the Winget CLI. And hopefully, if there's enough demand for it, maybe we can make things happen.
Thanks, guys. We have a question from what has to be my new favorite alias on this site. Skip to the endpoint is his name or her name. The question I'm seeing coming up time and time again is about the company portal and consistency of installation. While delivery during ESP is still being worked on, it can quite often take significant time for the store to update and the app installer to register itself before any new store app type apps install.
Is there a question?
This is, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Steve, did you have something?
No, I just said, is there a question there?
I'm still going.
Oh, okay.
This is made worse if you're blocking user access to the store via the use private store only policy, where you can't even see if it's trying to update the in the box apps. Here's the question. Is there any upcoming improvements or tips to make this more consistent?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think there's definitely some pain points there that the team have been hearing for a bit, especially with the company portal and the installation and things like that. I think we are working on a couple of features in this area, improvements and enhancements, just aimed at addressing this. So there are improvements coming. But yeah, I think that's probably the answer, is that there is improvements coming. Because I do think that this is a feedback that we get quite frequently. So
totally, naive and dumb question, because I used to be that guy. But Roy, this is more for you. For the people out there that may be wondering, like, how do I get Package Manager? Is it in Windows? Is it not in Windows? Like, where do I start? What do I do? Like, I know we popped up the URL, but like, is it included in Windows? Again, I was that guy, not the smartest guy on the planet. Like, is it included in Windows? Do I have to be on a certain version? Like, what do I do to get started? Like,
What about Windows 10? Yeah.
there you go. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the Windows Package Manager is actually included in the desktop app installer, which released back in RS5. And so basically any Windows RS5 and newer, which I think dates back to, I think it was 1806 or 1807, includes the desktop app installer, which therefore includes the Windows Package Manager. And then at time of logon, so after you completed UBI, there's an upgrade that happens to all the apps that are pre-installed on the device. And so Windows Package Manager is updated to the latest version at that point in time. Now, if you want to go grab a pre-release, such as something that includes additional features that may not be available in the store release today, the Winget CLI has a download for pre-available features, as well as the existing install on client devices if you want to distribute it offline.
so if I'm not on one of those newer versions, like you said, 1803 or whatever, if I'm on one of those older versions, what do I have to do to get it? Like, do I have to go to the store, download something? Do I just, go upgrade your device?
That's a great question. I think there's some limitations to the MSIX platform that we're running on. that may be a hindrance to going pre 1806 release or 1802 release. So there might be some limitations there, but any supported OS today has the full availability to get the Windows, the Windows Package Manager installed onto it.
Gotcha. All right, cool.
Okay, we have another question. This one is from Nigel. Will .exe Win32 apps from the store be able to auto update?
Yes, but currently I think the Win32 apps are under kind of private preview. We're previewing them, so there are some behaviors that we're still trying to enhance. And so, like it is an area that is, I think, quite new in from the store. So it's something we're trying to improve. But yeah, the answer is yes.
Well, always bear in mind that a lot of app publishers will put in their own proprietary update engines inside these Win32 apps. And, Java was the worst one for me for years. And then Adobe had theirs. And, that's something that's going to need to be managed. I tend to find those to be problematic at times. And, I was constantly struggling with, okay, do I lock them all down? Do I push configuration down to prevent auto update? Or now that we are no longer all on premises and we're all living all over the place and a lot of remote workers, I've kind of gone full circle on that and just let the apps auto update,
So that's actually interesting. And I know we got a question, but I just want to elaborate. Like since I've been working in this space too and working on something, as I'm talking with customers, it's a little bit weird because letting apps auto update versus trying to manage what updates are in your estate, right? When things go wrong or when, hey, why do I have 18 different versions of, let's just make up our own app, like basket weaving, right? Why are there 18 different apps of basket weaving in my environment? How do I get to a standard across the board? And where does that break? Because if basket weaving auto updates, I don't know about it. And then out of 4,000 devices, HR calls and says because basket weaving auto updated, now their Excel plugin doesn't work and they can't do, I don't know, some finance thing. So
yeah,
it's a little bit, the app space, as Mandar knows and Roy knows, we all know that spent time on the other side. It's fun, but it also can be, it also can be super challenging because there's no standards.
But in fairness to customers, a lot of customers have regulatory compliance, and especially like our federal and DoD customers, where the regulations haven't caught up with the technology, and the regulations aren't aware that every app publisher seems to be on a different update schedule.
Yeah,
so it's
hard to balance. It's super hard to balance because you got the I need to operate and function, and then you got the I need security, and that security is in that latest update. So now here's the latest update, and it's a hard balance. Because I need to update and I need to work and I need to be secure. So it's like this weird Bermuda Triangle thing. And then everybody's answer is typically different. Security wants this. And even if we do have a standard of, let's say, N-1, I need the emergency turn 2 keys button because I was driving to the office and basket weaving is broken and vulnerable. So now I need 2 people to turn the key and launch the nuke or to update the app. So it gets very, very interesting, especially the things I'm working on with apps. Mandar, Roy, I'm sure you guys have had these conversations too. So it's very hard to figure out what's the right thing to help deliver to customers, because in the end, what you're delivering is so much control and so many knobs that here's all the knobs, guys. Good luck. Automate it, figure out what your process is. So I don't know, I'm rambling now, but it is very challenging in this space.
I mean, one of the things that the Windows Package Manager is doing is we have a thing called package pinning that we're working to release, I believe. I don't know if it's fully released out yet, but it's in the works. It's on our GitHub. So if you want to take a look at it, you can. But package pinning basically lets you pin the version of what is installed and not allowing it to update beyond that. So as an IT pro, I can go Winget install and package pin something onto a device to ensure that it remains in that version until I say otherwise.
We have for I guess like for Intune, right? Like we kind of have like also like app supersedence as well, which I think does a lot of the functionalities in terms of like, hey, you want to pilot to a specific group, or you want to deploy it to one group at a time and closely monitor that. So that's a technology that we actually have today, and I think rollout for that is I think we're currently actually rolling that out. So that's something that we actually recommend people checking out as well. Like, especially if you have apps that are like, Win32 and you want to go and deploy it. But I do think that supersedence gives you the most control from an update experience as well. And and then that's kind of the baseline. We could go from there, and
Good stuff. I could keep going, but I guess we probably have questions. So
No, I like this. So thank you for railroading, Danny, per usual.
there's another edit.
We have a question from Bruno. We were wondering if there's any news or updates that can be shared about being able to add a private Winget repository to Intune. Several school boards use LOB service that they will lose a significant library of educational apps after March 31st. We want to make sure we have something implemented that can help them.
I could probably talk about that. So I most likely will not get the private repository by March 31st. So a little bit unfortunate, but it's something that I think we're definitely looking into as well, and trying to figure out where that should live within Intune, how that should look and feel, and whatnot. So it's something that we're kind of investigating and looking into. Our recommendation is that if you guys have LOB apps, please work with the vendors and retrieve the applications, and you could still use Intune itself to kind of deploy those applications down to the devices, whether it's with Win32 or with LOB apps. So the workaround is definitely there.
Well, let me get some clarification, Mandor. So we mentioned earlier that after March 31st, if you currently have existing Microsoft Store for Business applications that you've synced with the Store for Business currently in Intune, even though they're read-only, they can still be there and they can still be deployed. Did I understand that correctly?
So so I think I believe you understand that correctly. So the application objects are still going to be inside Intune. It's just that you can't. They're most likely not going to be all updated.
So phase 2 of that would be if you have a line of business application that you've imported into the Store for Business and are thus advertising it with Intune, would that still be the case there?
I believe that should be part of the case. If it's considered the same as the same category as the Microsoft Store for Business app objects, it should be the case. But let me just double check. But yeah, I'm trying to think about like any edge cases there are. But yeah, it probably should be.
Okay, we have a question from Johannes, who's one of our MVPs. Hello. Is there a link or document I can provide to vendors to show them the benefits of putting their app in the store/Winget?
We do have all of our Learn documentation, learn.microsoft.com. And on top of that, we do also have our Winget CLI on GitHub. So that aka.ms winget-CLI. Both locations have full amounts of documentation to cover every bit of it. What also is included in there, and this might be of interest to you and your customers, is that basically we take the same rigorous validation process that we do with the store, and we do the same with our community repository. And so as we start adding more and more content, or as you add more content in, that content gets validated and then becomes available to others. And so you'll start to see more and more customers seeing this come in as a more trusted app, hopefully, because that is one of the end all goals, is making sure that we have trust with our enterprise and our other customers to make sure that they're happy with what we're putting out there and allowing to be out there.
So Roy, I'm going to ask you a question and kind of put you on the spot, because what's the difference between when I'm using Winget, right? When you do what it is, Winget-search or Winget search, whatever the command line is, whenever you do that, you see different sources. So can you explain to the people that don't know, like, what the difference between the different sources are?
Oh, for sure. And this kind of goes back to what I was originally, when I came in talking about the Windows Package Manager. We have the different sources in there, and we have one source that has a labeled name of Winget, and that is representative of our community. And our community has all the applications hosted onto a GitHub. Not the applications, but the application manifest that basically provide the details about the applications. That sits within GitHub for active contributions and tracking to see who's added it in there. And then the MS Store ID of our sources is the Microsoft Store. And so everything that is available to you through the Microsoft Store is available through there. And one of the added benefits with the Windows Package Manager and the store integration is we're now enabling the store to offer out additional apps beyond just the traditional MSIX and AppX packages.
So I'm going to be a little bit of a debater here and say, if I'm back at my hospital putting a security hat on or talking to my security guy, why in the heck would I use that community repo? Like, can we contribute it to it? Like, is there benefits in store versus community repo?
I mean, if you are a hospital or you have your own personal line of business apps for your enterprise, the other option for customers to do is that REST source that we have as well. And the link to that is aka.ms whack winget-cli-rest source. And I'm sure it's going to pop up down below there. There it is.
Look at our people in the back.
Great timing. But if you go there, we provide a set of PowerShell scripts and manual steps on how to set up your own REST source. And what this does is this offers you and your enterprise your own custom repository of applications and application manifests. So if you want to host your own application, say your hospital surgical equipment or specific software for coding in the front end desks, you can have that software sit there and then you can deliver it out through the Windows Package Manager on those devices. So you'd have your own repository instead of having a community. The community repository is available to everyone. So if you put your apps up there, they're a line of business, other enterprises, other non-enterprises as well, have that ability to download it. But using the REST gives you some level of security to say that only those who have access to my REST can have access to these apps.
So are you seeing people actually use that though? Like, are you seeing customers use community in their enterprise? And like, what are your common questions? Because that's, I guess what I'm saying is that's pretty interesting because the way it functions and details that maybe you want to go into, maybe you don't, but how are you seeing it adopted?
So we do actively see a lot of enterprise customers using it and asking for more access to it. It's quite interesting because like as we've been moving forward with the Winget store and Winget community, we're seeing more and more online contributions happening there because customers want to have their apps available to them through the Windows Package Manager. And the way for them to distribute these apps in this way is to submit it to the community repository. And so we are seeing apps show up there more and more. And we do have demands from enterprises saying, hey, why is this app here not present in our community repository? Why is this one not there? And we say simply, it hasn't been submitted yet. If you submit it, it can go up in the community repository and it becomes accessible to you and all your customers. And then second to that is we see a lot of enterprises wanting to get the Windows Package Manager on their server infrastructure. They want to use it so they can offer out remote applications. And this is a very simplistic way of getting content delivered out, or even their jump boxes.
So as an enterprise, though, I can rely on the discussion of trust and, and the integrity of the code that's actually being uploaded there. The Store for Business had a huge gatekeeping process. Many would argue was a little bit too much of a gatekeeping process. We still have that in place, even for submissions to the community repository. So we can assure not only enterprise customers, but government customers, especially who might be interested, that they can rely on that code and there's no risk of untrustworthy code.
I mean, I always want to be safe to say no risk is no such a thing. Every security person I've ever talked to has never said this is a no risk situation by disconnecting the device from the internet. There's still a risk of someone walking up with a USB stick. So that being said, we do go through a very rigorous scanning process to ensure that the content is safe from start to finish. When the application is submitted, we scan it, we launch it, we install it. We're constantly scanning to make sure everything is successful and safe for customers to use, making sure that nothing new gets dropped onto our validation steps, to include such as, at install, does it also include malicious software? And that's one of our checks. If it passes, then we go on to the next check and the next check. And like I said, it's very similar to what we're doing with the store. We're even using a lot of the same processes. So
I want to bring Mandar into the conversation because Mandar, I'm assuming that all of these things that you talked to Roy about, again, I may know a little bit more of the backstory because we're our teammates, but I'm assuming that all of these things you're hearing is kind of why we decided to go and really integrate with Winget and Intune. You want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of reasons why we kind of did the integration, and the technology itself is really, really nice, and I think there definitely is a desire, from a future perspective, to have a lot of those capabilities to just deploy an application and send, forget, and have it kept up to date as well. And I think just a little bit of point on top of that is that the previous Microsoft Store experience with an Intune wasn't that great and didn't have a lot of capabilities, and so this kind of is the next stage of that evolution, and bringing a bunch of rich features, enterprise level features into it, and then having that backed by Winget, so it gets all updated and has the right reporting and things like that. So that's kind of the reasons why we did the integration itself.
It really seems like a good pairing, right? And Roy, correct me if I'm wrong, Winget itself doesn't have like a management component to it, but if you take and connect it with Intune, now you get this beginner management experience that could be elaborated on, obviously, with Mandora and Roy connecting, getting that management experience on a Winget, and now it's out there. So give it a try, give us feedback on what you guys want to see next. I'm sure Mandora would love to hear that, so we can continue to innovate on that management experience of Winget.
Yes, totally agree. And one of the other benefits we got too with working with Mandar is that company portal now gives a nice interface for customers to click on things, because we are a command line service.
Cool. All right, I'll shut up. I've interjected enough.
Okay, we have a question from Kathy. Will there be any guidance published on how to use Winget with Configuration Manager? As others have said, we are hybrid joined, but still use ConfigMan for managing workstations and apps.
Yeah, so I think. Oh, go ahead, Roy.
I was going to say, I have maybe Mandar, you can go ahead and answer, and then I'll come up with the second part afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. So I think the Winget integration is more of a Intune side feature rather than with config manager. So that's kind of the short answer. So we do recommend using Intune if you would like to use the Winget integration.
And I was going to say, while it is our focus to go forward with the Intune side, there are lots of MVP blogs out there that you might be interested in reading about, who have possibly uncracked a way of delivering apps and using config manager with Winget. Not that we offer support for that functionality, but something has happened that allows you to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a config-man person at all, then if you know what you have available in Configuration Manager, there's ways that you can, go and work the system to get those things. Quasi create your own management overhead engine over the Winget experience. So definitely go out there and look around for some MVP blogs. It's not hard to find them. So
yeah,
you can.
I like the term bespoke.
Yeah. There you go. Perfect term. But yeah, I mean, you know what you can do with Configuration Manager, and Roy already kind of really said it. It's a command line driven tool. So 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah, we support PowerShell.
There you go. All right, what's our next question?
We have a question from Steven. If you're limiting what users can install and store for business, will those limits be preserved?
Is he talking about the UI? Well, since users aren't going to the store for business anymore, that's what Intune is for, the grouping and targeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, the store for business section of the store client has been disabled or removed in Windows 11. So that's not even an option anymore inside the store.
Okay. Next question from Nigel. Is the new store considered a managed installer for technologies like AppLocker and WDAC?
That's a good question.
Ooh.
I don't know that one. Does anybody know?
I actually don't know either.
Hey, this is the most transparent form you're going to get. If we don't know, but we'll tell you we don't.
We need the Xbox achievement thing stumped the panel.
There you go. Like, totally. If that's a question, we should definitely get back to you on that, because even I want to know that one. That's actually a really good question.
I actually got brought into a meeting about that a little while ago, but I don't know if we ever figured out an answer to it.
It's weird. Like, you ask a question and you get like 18 paragraphs. There's a whole discussion. Like, damn, I left that and still don't have the answer.
Well, Nigel, we will follow up on that
Yeah,
and
Nigel,
post
we'll
it in the
definitely
thread
follow up.
once we figure it out. We have a question from David. Will the new method have the option to install apps in the device context, i.e. offline?
So I think device context and offline are kind of two separate things. Device system context is something that we're working on, so the support for that will come. Offline is something that we currently don't have, but we are investigating, workarounds and other ways to achieve it. So that's something we currently don't have.
I'm just doing a quick search in our list of discussion items that we have in the Windows Package Manager GitHub. Again, aka MS Winget CLI. Check it out. But I'm just seeing if we have a couple feature requests in there. And we do have a lot of requests coming into our Winget CLI repository for those. And again, if this is something that you're interested in, hop in there and throw your comment, your scenario of what you would use this for if you wanted an offline solution like that. And then we try and prioritize based on demand.
So question for both of you guys. Like, y'all have had, or y'all been working together for a while, and Mandar, you recently released this thing into Intune. So I'm more interested, like, what's your, when you get pulled on a call for a customer that's been using it, what are the top 3 things they ask for? And when you're having that conversation, does that mean, hey, I wait, I got to go call Roy, and now you guys are tag teaming the call? Like, what? I'm trying to figure out, like, what's the most common things customers are asking for now, and then where do you see this maybe going later? And not holding you to anything at all, just like your own head. What do you think the sky is for this thing?
Yeah, so I mean that's a good question. So I think in terms of like feature ask, I think a lot of customers I think the number one ask was like having like system context, system device context deployment of applications from the store, right? I think when it was first released, and I was working with Roy and also the PM before him, Charla. That was kind of the number one ask, and that's something that we prioritize and we're working on, and then we're gonna get a solution out there. I think other stuff I've heard are, some like very much like basic, quality things like having logos, right? Importing logos directly from the store, right? So when you deploy to company portal or even onto the desktop, you actually have like an application with logos. You don't have to really go and add that into it. That's something we've heard as well. Also, I think offline app distribution, that's another big one. Like some people would like to download the application and then distribute that offline, whether in a closed environment or bring elsewhere or for provisioning and things like that. So that's something we've heard as well. I think those are probably the top 3. There's small things here and there in terms of like search, right? Being able to search by publisher or being able to filter the apps inside the store, that we've heard that as well. And those are all the things that we're also looking at and part of the improving that experience for customers.
I think also to mimic on that search is a lot of the content you find using the Windows Package Manager today is based on an age rating of E for everyone. And so we are seeing questions come in of, why can't I find Netflix? Well, unfortunately, that's rated as teen. And so we are working on ways to get around that age rating so that we aren't just offering apps to those who do not qualify for the age rating, but still can support enterprise customers.
Well, that's a question I also have, Roy. Right now in Intune, as of now, in addition to the Microsoft Store for Business, where you actually synchronize, and you can also go in and actually put in a direct URL to a Microsoft Consumer Store app. For example, I had some customers who were casinos. Totally coincidental, by the way. And, they were wanting to pull some gaming software that was actually consumer available. And so it was not available in the Microsoft Store for Business. And so they would deploy through Intune directly from the consumer store. Will that continue, or is that still a capability if I wanted to deploy Netflix, for example?
I think that might go to Mandar. I mean, this is talking about what it sounds like the legacy store app model in Intune and how you'd retrieve the URL to push out there. So maybe Mandar, maybe you have an answer about that legacy.
Yeah, so I think legacy currently is still there. we still have to work up a deprecation plan for that. But it is there, and if people want to use that solution, they can still use it. But I think Roy and I are working to address some of the age rating and those questions, so that people don't really need to go through that whole experience again, and just go into the new store experience and get the app that they want, regardless of the age rating.
Wait, you mean to tell me people don't want to continue to work harder? Come on.
Yeah,
I mean, I used to love the complexity of making things happen. You go install Config Manager, and it was a 4-hour process, and you had to count out everything beforehand. That was fun, right?
Job security.
Fun days.
Yeah, and SCOM, open up that old Excel spreadsheet that told you how many SCOM servers and where to put them based on the number of clients you had in your network structure. Oh, amazing.
I'm projecting a little bit future episode, but policy pizza party, like here's a spreadsheet of good luck stuff.
So Rachel, we got some more questions, don't we?
Oh my God.
We do. Okay, Steve, you're going to have to give me 30 seconds to get this one out, because there's multiple questions in this question.
Okay.
This is from Sven. Microsoft Store app new. Do Win32 apps auto update like UWP apps? Within
Yes.
Intune, a new type of app, Microsoft Store app new, can be deployed. Most apps are UWP apps, but some are Win32. Do these Win32 apps update themselves in the same way as UWP apps through Windows Update / Winget? Are these apps updated through another mechanism? If so, how? So who wants to tackle Sven's questions?
Those are Win32 apps. If it's deployed from the store, they are kept up to date using Winget. So yeah, I think that's probably the one question I've heard from the 3 questions, right?
So it's actually interesting that it keeps the app updated, which goes back to one of the things I was saying earlier, right? Like how keeping apps updated. Are customers really concerned about that app auto update? I guess there's 2 different buckets, right? There are certain apps customers don't care about. Like if that auto updates them, I don't care. If it breaks, I don't care because it auto updated because I have something else. Perfect example that I've heard has been 7-zip. Like if 7-zip blew up, I don't care because guess what? I'll just use the built-in one. But 7-zip's the thing that we have and we want to use it. And if it didn't work, oh well. But line of business apps or some type of, I've heard in feedback, like if there was a way to rate apps by blending, if there's a way to rate apps by like criticality, like if this app is non-critical, severity or criticality of medium and then one high, then maybe I would let all of my low impacted apps or low criticality just auto update. But intermediate and in the high level, yeah, no, those don't auto update.
Rochelle, you can call me Stefan. For that mistake I just made.
There's a whole side chat that's just going crazy.
Okay, we have another question. Am I able to assign Microsoft Store apps to enrollment status page profile to install them during the autopilot process?
That's a good question. So ESP support is coming. That's something we're working on as well. So stay tuned.
Okay. We have another question from Brady. Danny, any update on running Winget in the system context to update apps for all users? We have many old and vulnerable store apps, and it's proving challenging to update them in an automated fashion.
So on that, I believe we've done some work, but I don't know exactly the limitations of what we've done today. I'll have to reach back to the team and see the actual answer for this one, unfortunately. So, yeah, sorry.
This might be a record. We've had 2 questions we can't answer. I kind of love it.
Hey, that's what the show is for. Like, give the people what they want. If you got hard questions, bring them. Like, we can answer them, we maybe can't, but hey, we'll all learn together. That's what it's about.
So let's recap here. So the repository is pretty much the modern way forward. I mean, Microsoft's not the first at it. I mean, there were other repositories. We were also doing it with scripts and the PowerShell gallery and everything. So with Winget, we noticed we have, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 package formats, MSIX and MSI. What about zip files and other formats, cab files?
So from the store, we have the MSIX or the Windows apps, and Win32, which is MSI and EXE apps.
Mm-hmm.
With the Windows Package Manager, we do actively have support for compression files today for install. And so you can have a .zip and deploy that out to your client devices. So if you look at the community repository, we do have a few in there today.
That's interesting.
Yeah. We're going above and beyond.
So let me throw this out there to the panel. Will there ever be one package format to rule them all?
I know we tried at one point.
Yeah.
MSIX. Oh, we've tried several times. I remember when they said @V was going to be one pack.
I know, right? I know.
Oh, that's going far back. In fact, I got a question about ramping up a customer on @V the other day, and I was taken aback. I said I had to actually search for my old @V blog, and the last post was like from 2017, and so I'm sitting there with well, let me tell you about the old days of that. Yeah, it's been some time now. I mean, that's what I felt like.
You started off the conversation with that, and then you followed it up with, well, you're going to need your report server, your publishing server, your management server, your everything server. And then at that point, you can deploy these out. But yeah, I know there's been talks because I think it's being retired in the future, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. But I think at this point, MSI will survive a nuclear winter. I mean, it's like cockroaches. I mean, MSI is going to be here forever.
I don't think we can get there. I don't think we can get to one format. As much as we've tried before,
yeah.
And yes, we're Microsoft, we're a big company. We think vendors will, take our recommendations and run. It's been proven that sometimes it's just easier for them to get it out and not go through the extra steps. Like even myself, we've all packaged apps at some point, right? So it's like,
oh
yeah, I'm not taking the extra step. I'm done with this MSR. I've got the XE and I'm done. Like I don't know if we can get to the format, but I do like really what intrigues me about Winget is that you could throw these different formats at it and it has the logic built in to figure that out. And that's what makes it really intriguing to have this conversation and to be in this technology day and age, because we don't have to necessarily focus on trying to make people make a format for us. We have a tool that we can innovate and invest in that will just throw a format at it. And as long as it has the logic to understand that format, the manifest thing I think is completely brilliant. Figuring out how that manifest should be formatted and structured together, and then being able to throw that against the XE, that I think was brilliant. And then if that manifest can be added to add different formats as we continue to evolve over the future, I mean, I think that's the best you can ask for. That's the challenge you can accept instead of trying to go fight the tide of, all you have vendors need to give me this format.
No, it's a perfect example of rejecting the tyranny of or and embracing the genius of and. That's
yeah.
By the way, the pipe goes really good with the old man sweater, doesn't it?
I mean, to add on that too, I mean, we found that customers have more strength in talking to their vendors for their application modeling than we do as Microsoft.
So totally left field question. I found it very interesting that something that I just discovered in our own cloud service was test-based. So Mandar can talk to this probably more than I can. I mean, both of you guys can, but I found that very interesting because when you go into the apps blade, and if anybody's paid attention, there's a link for test base. And it's so cool that you can actually use a cloud service to test your application compatibility against various different Windows updates. Like that helped me unlock a area of thinking I didn't even consider even working on the thing I'm working on now. But that helped me look outside that box to be like, holy crap, man, if I can do this in the cloud for a customer and then give them results based off of what happened, now things get really interesting there. And bringing it back to the different formats, who cares now? Like if I can take this, execute it here, and then get results of that said execution, now it's all a query game at that point. Like if I know what happened, then great. Now it's a query game. And if anybody knows me, I'm a huge component of automation, right? I love to figure out the manual steps, but what I'm after is to automate the process, make it simpler, more efficient, and effective. So that, I mean, Mandar, you guys can talk about it more, but I'm just saying that has a lot of potential. And Mandar's already got it shown in the blade. I don't know if you're doing anything with it, Roy, but it's super exciting to see that we got that service.
I mean, I have already had a couple conversations back in November with one of the PMs on that team. It actually came up. We did a customer outreach program where we're talking to them. And they're like, have you heard of test spaces? And are you working with test spaces? And we're like, who? What?
Exactly.
So we followed up on that and we started having some conversations. And I think I'm actually overdue for a call with test spaces. So, if test spaces is watching and listening to this, hey, we need to have a connection. We need to connect.
All right, I'll shut up. I know there's more questions, but it's me excited. Go for it.
What, Steve?
We have a lot of questions, I see.
We do. We have a few from Ted. The first one, are there any plans to include repair and uninstall options in the company portal or allow systems installs to be interactable?
Okay, so I think there's a couple of different items here. So I know app uninstall within the company portal is one of the hottest questions or feature requests we've been getting. That is something we are currently working on, and I know that this line has been said many times, but this time I think it's going to come very, very soon, and this time for real.
I was hoping you wouldn't even saw that question, man.
We promise.
A lot of times, Mandar, our repair is just an uninstall, reinstall. It's just one button to do both, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, so this one, like, do stay tuned. In terms of repair, like as a separate feature, I think repair, if we consider a separate feature, it is on the roadmap, but there's currently no date for it. But hey, if repair is all it is just uninstall and reinstall, then wait until the uninstall button gets introduced in the company portal, and then just do that. But yeah, I think that's the uninstall question. System context was the other question. System context to be interactable. Oh yeah, uninstall option to government or allow system installs to be interactable with users to remove programs whenever they need them. Yeah, so I think this question is more focused on app installs and just this is very, very high priority for us. So it's something we're working on.
I think Ted's question generally is, when will company portal be like Software Center?
That's a really good question. And I think that's probably a better question for the company portal PM, which is not me,
but that could be a future show. Yeah. So
yeah.
Mandar, I think I may have mentioned this to you in the past. I don't remember, but we have an override in Windows Package Manager that allows you to override the silent install to make anything interactive.
No, that's the solution. That's the way to
go. Okay, I'm gonna throw another question out there, and this one is very open-ended. Is Microsoft going away from the not everyone should be administrators security stance?
Well, if you're talking about what we recommend as a North Star for all of our customers with corporate or agency or education devices, yes, we should strive to ensure that our end users aren't running as administrator. We should, move towards privileged identity management. We should move towards SAWs, PAWs. We should, move towards the end user not running as administrator. That should be our North Star. Of course, there's lots of things that have to get involved with that, everything from app compat to security policy. But I think that's not changed. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve. Another one, my users can't install Winget apps until Winget gets installed under their user profile. Any ideas on how to get that available sooner? One of the first things users do after autopilot Ubi is install apps.
So that's actually a feature of Windows. When the MSX technology did their first release, they preloaded everything as a stage onto the device. And then as you saw that nice black screen that said, we're getting everything ready, they would then register everything for that user. And customers complained that that was a 10-minute window while every app was being installed onto the device. And so one of the features that ended up coming out because of that was we don't just install every app. We only install a select 3 or very few apps as part of that. And then those were like crucial for the OS to run. And then there's a 15-minute delay and we start installing apps after that time. Because the Windows Package Manager is part of the desktop app installer, which fits inside that MSIX model, we do have that limitation. Now, one of the ways that applications do get installed quicker by the end user is by launching it. If you were to launch the desktop app installer by clicking on an MSIX file, it would then register that onto the user's context and then allow for the Windows Package Manager or to run it manually. I can also throw out there too that we are working with the Windows org to come up with some other ways to try and get it available sooner if possible. But unfortunately right now, the only way to do it is for a user trigger that would launch the desktop app installer and force that registration to happen.
So we have several people asking, will there be a private Winget store for on-prem use? Any update on adding a private Winget repo to Intune?
So I can take the first part if you want to take the second part, Mandar. The first part is there ever going to be a private for on-prem use? And this, I think, goes back to the fact that we chose to be open source and on GitHub. All of our code for the REST source is available to the public to take, modify, and do whatever they wish with. It's a very open-ended thing that you can do anything you want to and make it work for your industry. Now, that being said, today we only support Azure infrastructure with it, but there's nothing stopping it from adopting on-prem IIS and SQL. It just needs to have the developer time put into it. And if you want it, feel free to contribute to it. We'll review it and make sure that it fits and goes in. However, I think our current model is we're focusing on cloud first.
Yeah.
But going back to that comment I said earlier about posting things into the issues log, if enough people post in there, we prioritize. And if everyone says, we'll go to the winget-cli-rest source as our AKA link. But if enough people post and bump that up, you will start to see that we focus more on those issues. And so please, if you want to see this happen, put it in there. We actively monitor it. We actually look at it twice a week, both REST source and the Winget CLI, to make sure that we are on track for what customers want.
Yeah, and I guess for the second part of the question, in terms of like having a private Winget repo inside Intune, so that's something that the whole entire team is looking at, and I think it's we definitely have it in the backlog. It's something that we just have to investigate a little bit further and try and make sure that there's a lot of like trying to figure out like, hey, if this thing is inside Intune, what it would look like. How does that compare with potentially just using Win32 and LOB apps within Intune and things like that? So I think we're still more on the investigation phase than anything else.
Thanks, Mandar. Another question. One thing keeping me from deploying something like Adobe Reader from the new method is I can't apply configurations with our MST file. Any discussions for including additional command line options to allow us to deploy apps from the App Store with an attached MST file? Just an example.
Transforms, man, they're not going away.
They're not. They're around to stay. I mean, not just the transform files, but custom parameters for the install. And this goes back to with the Windows Package Manager, we do offer an override feature for it. Mandar, what about the Intune? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, additional configurations is something that I think we were like looking into. Like, so I think this is probably one of those examples where if there's a lot of customer requests for it, then we'll definitely, it's more likely for it to have it happen and add the additional configurations. Like I think like what Roy mentioned before.
What about customers who leverage the existing Microsoft Store for Business for purchasing and for licensing and for managing the commerce side of things? What does the future look like for that with the repositories? Will it be out of band?
Yeah, so I think. Oh, go ahead.
Go for it. I was going to ask a question as a follow up to that because I wasn't sure if I understood it.
Okay, so in terms of like within Intune, the new store experience will not have any sort of paid applications or license management. So that part is kind of going away, and it's out of band.
Okay.
Okay, I know we touched on it briefly earlier. Any update on running Winget in the system context to update apps for all users? We have many old vulnerable store apps, and it's proving challenging to update them in an automated fashion.
I haven't reached out to my team since the question first came up yet. Hopefully, we can try and get an answer and put it out there. Please look at our Winget-CLI on GitHub. Again, that AKMS is going to show up right there. Go there, post it, or even search, because I believe it's already been asked. And ask the questions and keep it going, because, again, we prioritize everything that is of high demand. And so make sure you get that in there and throw that comment in. And we can answer things there, provide guidance. And I think someone somewhere may have answered it and shared a link of how they found a workaround to make this happen. But I haven't actually followed through to see if it works.
So on that note, I also want to call out that on our blog post or our landing page, if you will, we've published our upcoming sessions through June. We finally got our ish together and have an actual schedule out there. So please add to calendar. Let us know if there's any topics we missed so that we can make sure we're keeping this engaging for y'all. But I want to open it back up. I know we only have a couple minutes, but final thoughts, tips, best practices, everyone on the panel.
None here. I mean, go try all the app stuff that we've done. We've done a lot of integration and a lot of work, a lot of collaboration. So definitely go check it out. I mean, Roy has the Winget command line, Mandora. It's got the integration. Definitely go try it out. Like, it's definitely helpful as I've seen it with a customer lens, and I'm sure more feedback just to make the product and features better. That's all I got. Anybody else?
I was going to say, keep an eye out at our next conference. There might or might not be a big announcement coming.
Package repos are the future. Server, DevOps, end user devices, VMs.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would say is, Microsoft Store for Business is going away very, very soon. And if there's apps that you want to keep updated, and those apps do live inside the new store, look into reassigning them, but from the new store as well, so you can keep those all updated and keep that train going. So that's my only tip.
Well, thank you, guys. Up next month, back to the policy pizza party. Danny and I are going to revisit the MDM policy evolution with some special guests from the Intune team. Of course, I'm on a diet, so we'll need to make sure we have vegan cauliflower crust MDM policies just for inclusivity. But it's been a great time, and I would like to thank our guests Roy and Mandar for joining us today. And as always, we love the engagement. We love the questions. Keep them coming.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.